There's a force within you that society fears you'll discover. An energy so primal and potent that when misunderstood, it becomes your prison, but when mastered, becomes the key to your total liberation. This force isn't just sexual, it's the essence of life, creation, power, and fulfillment. Napoleon Hill called it sexual transmutation, but few truly understood what he meant. Few dared to plumb the depths of this uncomfortable truth, that you, exactly as you are right now, might be squandering your most potent energy, spilling it in moments of empty pleasure while your soul cries out for purpose and your mind begs for clarity. What will you do when you discover that every urge you experience carries within it the power to transform not only your life, but your very essence? What will happen when you realize that modern society has conspired to keep you addicted to superficial pleasure, precisely because it fears what you would become if you channeled that energy into something greater? Today you will be confronted with a truth few are willing to face, that the path to true strength, to authentic success, and to spiritual evolution necessarily passes through the understanding and mastery of sexual energy. Not through its repression, not through its denial, but through its conscious transmutation into pure power. We live in an age of deliberate sexual confusion. Modern society bombards us with stimuli, conditions us to seek instant gratification, teaches us that pleasure is the ultimate goal of existence. We're taught that sex is merely a physical act, that desire is just a biological need to be satisfied, that masturbation is healthy and natural. But this narrative hides a deeper, more disturbing truth, that every time you succumb to impulse without awareness, you are literally draining your life force, your creativity, your personal magnetism, and your ability to manifest your dreams into reality. Napoleon Hill, after studying the most successful men of his time, discovered a pattern society prefers to keep hidden. Those who achieved great things possessed a deep understanding of sexual energy and knew how to transmute it into creative power, mental strength, and magnetic presence. They understood that this energy isn't just about reproduction or pleasure. It's about creation, in its broadest sense. It's the same force that creates life, that can create wealth, that can create art, that can create impact, that can create transformation. But you've been conditioned to believe that this energy must be released, that it must be consumed, that it must be dissipated. You've been taught that retaining it is harmful, that channeling it is repression, that mastering it is impossible. This is the great lie of modernity. The truth is you possess within you a nuclear power plant, but you're using it to light matchsticks. You possess the capacity to move mountains, but you're squandering that force in fleeting moments of pleasure that leave your soul emptier each time. Sexual energy is fire. It's the primal flame that burns at the center of your being. When this fire isn't consciously directed, it consumes everything around it. Your discipline, your motivation, your mental clarity, your willpower. You become a slave to impulses, a prisoner of desires, a hostage to an energy that should be your greatest ally. But when you learn to work with this fire, when you understand its nature and its potential, it transforms into the most powerful force for your personal and professional evolution. Think of history's great achievers. Think of Tesla, who remained celibate and channeled all his sexual energy into his revolutionary inventions. Think of Leonardo da Vinci, who understood that the same energy that creates children can create masterpieces. Think of the great spiritual masters, the visionary leaders, the genius artists. They all possessed a deep understanding of this inner alchemy. They knew that sexual energy, when transmuted, not only increases creativity and mental power, but also develops what Napoleon Hill called a sixth sense, a heightened intuition that allows one to perceive opportunities invisible to others. But you, conditioned by modern society, have been taught to fear this possibility. You've been convinced that abstinence is impossible, that transmutation is a myth, that self-control is repression. You've been programmed to believe that you must release this energy constantly, thus keeping yourself in a perpetual state of weakness and dependence. And while you remain in this cycle, your true strength remains dormant, your potential remains unrealized, your dreams remain just dreams. The journey of sexual transmutation isn't about denying desire, it's about consciously traversing it. It's about recognizing that every sexual impulse carries a deeper message about your emotional needs, your existential voids, your unhealed wounds. When you feel desire, it's not just your body asking for pleasure. It's your soul asking for purpose, it's your mind asking for direction. It's your spirit asking for evolution. Desire is a call to something greater, but you've been taught to interpret it only as a call to something lesser. Imagine you are an ancient warrior, and within your chest burns a sacred fire. This fire can be used to warm your home, illuminate your path, and forge your weapons. But if you don't learn to control it, it will burn down your home, blind your eyes, and destroy everything you've built. Sexual energy is that sacred fire. It's the life force that can lift you to the heavens or drag you to the abyss, depending on how you choose to direct it. Modern society has bred an army of weak men, addicted to instant gratification, incapable of sustained discipline, constantly draining their life force in fleeting moments of pleasure that last seconds but cost days of energy and focus. These men live in a perpetual state of brain fog, purposelessness, anxiety, and depression, failing to realize that the root of their weakness lies in how they manage their sexual energy. When Napoleon Hill spoke of sexual transmutation, he was revealing one of the elite's best-kept secrets. He discovered that the most successful men shared a common trait. They had learned to convert sexual energy into mental, creative, and spiritual energy. They understood that this energy, when conserved and consciously directed, not only enhances intellectual capacity, but also cultivates an irresistible personal magnetism, a powerful presence that attracts opportunities, relationships, and resources. But you need to understand that this transmutation doesn't happen by accident. It requires a conscious decision, ironclad discipline, and a deep understanding of the psychological mechanisms involved. You need to recognize that every time you succumb to impulse without awareness, you are literally weakening yourself. You are draining not only physical energy, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. You are maintaining a state of dependence and weakness that prevents your evolution to higher levels of existence. The desexualized mind is not a mind that denies sex. It's a mind that has transcended sexual compulsion. It's a mind that has understood that sexual energy is too sacred to be wasted on moments of empty pleasure. It's a mind that has consciously chosen to redirect that energy toward higher purposes. Artistic creation, scientific innovation, wealth building, spiritual development, social impact. When you stop being a slave to sexual impulses and become their master, something extraordinary happens in your psychology. Your self-esteem increases dramatically because you've proven to yourself that you possess self-control. Your confidence rises because you no longer depend on external stimuli to feel good. Your discipline strengthens because you've exercised the willpower muscle in its most primal and powerful form. Your creativity explodes because the energy that was once dissipated is now available for creative expression. But most impressive is the development of what the ancients called personal magnetism. When you conserve your sexual energy, you develop a presence that people instinctively feel. You become more charismatic, more influential, more attractive, not just sexually, but in all aspects of life. People are naturally drawn to those who possess this conserved energy, even without understanding why. The journey of sexual transmutation is also a journey of deep self-knowledge. When you stop using sexual pleasure as an escape, you are forced to confront your real emotions, your genuine fears, your existential voids. You discover that often the sexual urge is actually an urge to escape. Escape from anxiety, escape from loneliness, escape from responsibility, escape from purpose. And when you stop escaping, you can finally begin to build. Imagine your mind as an ancient kingdom. For years, you allowed barbarian invaders, uncontrolled impulses, to plunder its riches, burn its buildings, and enslave its population. Now, you're making the decision to expel these invaders and restore your kingdom to its original glory. But this requires war. It requires you to become a warrior of your own psyche, that you fight daily internal battles, that you develop strategies to defend your mental borders. This war is not against sex. It's for the sovereignty of your own mind. It's not about denying your nature. It's about elevating your nature to a higher level. It's not about repression. It's about conscious and directed expression of your life force. You're not becoming less human. You're becoming more human than you ever were because you're operating from your higher centers of consciousness instead of your primal impulses. Society fears men who have mastered their sexual energy because these men become unstoppable. They possess a discipline that others consider impossible, a mental clarity that others consider supernatural, a presence that others consider magnetic. They are not easily manipulated by propaganda, not easily distracted by entertainment, not easily controlled by systems that depend on keeping people in states of weakness and dependence. Napoleon Hill observed that the most financially successful men were rarely those who dissipated their sexual energy indiscriminately. On the contrary, they were men who had learned to channel that energy into their ventures, their creations, their visions. They understood that the same energy that can create a child can create a company, a work of art, a revolution, a legacy. When you observe your own life with brutal honesty, you notice the patterns. You notice how your productivity decreases after sexual dissipation. You notice how your motivation evaporates, how your discipline weakens, how your creativity dries up. You notice how you become more prone to procrastination, more vulnerable to anxiety, more dependent on external stimuli to feel good. This is not coincidence. It's cause and effect. Sexual energy is your life force. It's the energy that animates your body, that fuels your mind, that inspires your spirit. When you constantly waste it, you are literally killing yourself slowly. You are operating on an energy deficit, trying to build an extraordinary life with ordinary resources, trying to achieve lofty goals from a state of constant depletion. But when you consciously choose to conserve and transmute this energy, you become a powerhouse of personal power. You wake up with more energy, think more clearly, create with more inspiration, relate with more presence, work with more focus. You become the version of yourself you always knew you could be, but never managed to sustain because you were constantly draining your life force. Sexual transmutation isn't just a technique, it's a philosophy of life. It's the understanding that you are the custodian of a sacred energy and that you have a responsibility to consciously direct it. It's the recognition that every choice you make regarding this energy is a choice about who you become, what kind of life you build, and what kind of legacy you leave. The ancients understood this. Esoteric traditions have always taught about the conservation and transmutation of sexual energy. Alchemists spoke of turning lead into gold, but they were really talking about transforming primal urges into elevated achievements. Spiritual masters across traditions practiced some form of celibacy or sexual control, not because they were repressed, but because they understood the power of this energy when consciously directed. You live in an age where this wisdom has been deliberately obscured. You've been convinced that sexual freedom is the same as sexual liberation, when in fact they are opposites. Sexual freedom, as promoted by modern society, is enslavement to impulses. True sexual liberation is freedom from compulsive impulses. It's the ability to consciously choose when, how, and why you direct your sexual energy. A desexualized mind is a liberated mind. It's not a mind that doesn't feel desire. It's a mind that isn't controlled by desire. It's not a mind that denies pleasure. It's a mind that has chosen higher pleasures over lower pleasures. It's not a repressed mind. It's a mind that has found a superior form of expression. When you master your sexual energy, you develop what Napoleon Hill called decision-making power. You become capable of making difficult decisions and sustaining them over time. You develop the ability to sacrifice immediate pleasures for long-term benefits. You become the master of your circumstances instead of a victim of your impulses. But this journey is not easy. Modern society has created a toxic environment for anyone who tries to conserve sexual energy. You are constantly bombarded with sexual stimuli, in the media, in advertising, on social media, in entertainment. You live in a culture that glamorizes promiscuity and ridicules self-control. You are surrounded by people who have normalized the constant dissipation of sexual energy and who will view your choice of transmutation as strange, impossible, or pathological. This external resistance is only the beginning. The real battle happens within your own mind. You will discover that your sexual impulses are not merely biological. They are intertwined with your deepest emotions, your most intimate insecurities, your oldest wounds. You have used sexual pleasure as a medication for anxiety, as an escape from responsibilities, as a substitute for genuine connection, as a distraction from purpose. When you remove that escape, you are forced to confront everything you were trying to avoid. This is uncomfortable, frightening, sometimes overwhelming, but it is also liberating because finally you are dealing with the root causes of your dissatisfaction instead of just treating the symptoms. You are building real, psychological strength instead of just seeking temporary relief. The journey of sexual transmutation is a journey through your own shadow. You will discover aspects of yourself that you didn't know existed. You will find fears you didn't know you had, strengths you didn't know you possessed, potentials you didn't know were possible. You will be tested in ways you never imagined, but you will also be rewarded in ways you never dreamed of. As you progress on this journey, you will begin to notice profound changes in your personality and your capabilities. Your discipline in all areas of life will strengthen. Your creativity will expand. Your intuition will sharpen. Your presence will intensify. Your confidence will solidify. You will become a more powerful, more focused, more magnetic version of yourself. People around you will begin to notice these changes, even without understanding their cause. They will comment on your different energy, your stronger presence, your more intense focus. Some will be curious and inspired. Others will be threatened and critical, but all will sense that something fundamental has changed within you. What has truly changed is that you have stopped operating from your primal impulses and started operating from your conscious will. You have stopped being reactive and become proactive. You have stopped being a slave to your circumstances and become the architect of your destiny. You have stopped dissipating your energy in random directions and started concentrating it on specific goals. This concentration of energy is what Napoleon Hill identified as the secret of great achievers. They weren't necessarily smarter, more talented, or luckier than others, but they had learned to focus their vital energy on their goals in a way that others considered impossible. They possessed an intensity of focus that allowed them to persevere where others gave up, to create where others copied, to innovate where others followed. Sexual energy, when transmuted, becomes fuel for this intensity. It nourishes not only your physical body, but also your mental and spiritual bodies. It gives you the strength to work longer hours without fatigue, to think more deeply without confusion, to create more intensely without blocks. It transforms you into a superhuman version of yourself. But this transformation comes at a price. The price is a willingness to forego immediate pleasures in favor of lasting achievements. The price is the courage to confront your inner demons without the anesthesia of sexual pleasure. The price is the discipline to maintain your high standards even when no one is watching. The price is the strength to resist the societal pressures that try to pull you back into conventional patterns of weakness and mediocrity. Not everyone is willing to pay this price. Most people prefer the safety of mediocrity to the risk of greatness. They prefer the comfort of conformity to the discomfort of transformation. They prefer the familiarity of weakness to the novelty of strength. And that's understandable. The journey of sexual transmutation is one of the most challenging a human being can undertake. But for those willing to pay the price, the rewards are extraordinary. You not only achieve external goals, wealth, success, recognition, but also develop inner qualities that are even more valuable. Self-mastery, inner peace, clear purpose, unshakable strength. You become someone who not only has things, but who is someone worthy of having those things. Modern society has created an epidemic of men who possess material possessions but lack inner strength. Men who have money but lack discipline. Who have status but lack genuine self-esteem. Who have access to pleasures but lack real satisfaction. These men are externally rich but internally poor because they never learned to develop the real source of wealth, their own vital energy. Sexual transmutation is the antidote to this inner poverty. It teaches you to develop inner wealth that naturally manifests as outer wealth. It teaches you to build inner strength that naturally expresses itself as outer success. It teaches you to cultivate inner energy that naturally translates into personal magnetism and social influence. When Napoleon Hill studied Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and other magnates of their time, he discovered that they all possessed an intuitive understanding of sexual transmutation. They may not have used those specific terms, but they understood that their sexual energy was their creative energy, that their vital force was their productive force, that their sexual self-control was the foundation of their professional success. These men weren't saints, they weren't perfect, but they had learned to consciously use their sexual energy instead of being unconsciously used by it. They had discovered that they could channel the same energy that created children to create empires, the same passion that fueled relationships to fuel ventures, the same intensity that moved their bodies to move mountains. You possess this same capacity. Within you burns the same fire that burned in all the great achievers of history. The difference isn't in the amount of energy you possess, it's in how you choose to direct it. The difference isn't in your innate abilities, it's in your willingness to develop conscious discipline over your abilities. The journey of sexual transmutation is a journey of personal alchemy. You are transforming lead into gold, but the lead is your primal urges, and the gold is your elevated achievements. You are transmuting sexual energy into creative energy, emotional energy into mental energy, physical energy into spiritual energy. You are becoming an alchemist of your own existence. This alchemy doesn't happen overnight. It requires constant practice, infinite patience, unwavering persistence. You will fail many times before you succeed. You will fall many times before you become stable. You will doubt many times before you develop certainty. But each failure teaches, each fall strengthens, each doubt clarifies. The difference between those who succeed in transmuting their sexual energy and those who fail isn't in the absence of challenges, it's in the response to challenges. The successful see each urge as an opportunity to exercise self-control. They see each temptation as a test of their willpower. They see each relapse as a lesson about their weaknesses. They transform obstacles into springboards, problems into opportunities, weaknesses into strengths. As you develop mastery over your sexual energy, you will discover that you are developing mastery over all aspects of your life. The discipline you cultivate in this most primal and powerful area spreads to all other areas. You become more disciplined with money, more focused at work, more present in relationships, more committed to your goals. This happens because sexual energy is the root of all other energies. It is the source of your physical vitality, your mental clarity, your emotional stability, your spiritual strength. When you learn to consciously manage this energy, you automatically elevate all other aspects of your existence. You become more energetic, more intelligent, more balanced, more powerful. But perhaps the deepest benefit of sexual transmutation is the development of an authentic relationship with yourself. When you stop using sexual pleasure as an escape from your inner reality, you are forced to confront who you really are. You discover your true motivations, your genuine fears, your deepest desires. You develop an honesty with yourself that is impossible to achieve while you are constantly escaping through pleasure. This honesty with yourself is the foundation of all genuine transformation. You cannot change what you are not willing to face. You cannot heal what you are not willing to feel. You cannot transcend what you are not willing to understand. Sexual transmutation forces you to face, feel, and understand the deepest parts of yourself, thus creating the possibility of real transformation. When you become genuinely honest with yourself, you also become genuinely powerful. You stop spending energy trying to be who you are not and begin investing energy in becoming who you truly can be. You stop fighting against your nature and begin working with it consciously. You stop being your own enemy and become your own most powerful ally. Sexual energy is the energy of life. It is the force that moves the universe, that creates worlds, that transforms realities. When you learn to consciously work with this force, you align yourself with the creative power of the cosmos. You become a co-creator of your own reality instead of a victim of random circumstances. Napoleon Hill realized that the most successful men weren't the luckiest, They were the ones who had learned to consciously work with the natural laws of success. And one of the most important of these laws is the law of sexual transmutation. This law states that sexual energy, when conserved and consciously directed, automatically transforms into creative, mental, and spiritual energy. This transformation isn't merely metaphorical, it's literal. Modern studies confirm that conserving sexual energy boosts testosterone levels, improves brain function, strengthens the immune system, increases physical energy, and develops leadership characteristics. Science is finally validating what ancient sages always knew, that sexual energy is life force energy in its most concentrated form. When you constantly waste this energy, you are literally weakening yourself on all levels. When you conserve and consciously transmute it, you are strengthening yourself on all levels. It's not superstition, it's physiology. It's not moralism, it's pragmatism. It's not repression, it's optimization. But modern society has a vested interest in keeping you ignorant of this truth. A population of strong, disciplined, and self-controlled men is a threat to systems of control that depend on weakness, dependence, and compulsion. Men who have mastered their sexual energy are men who cannot be easily manipulated, distracted, or controlled. They possess an inner independence that makes them resistant to propaganda, social pressure, and cultural conditioning. That's why true sexual education will never be taught in schools. That's why the secrets of sexual transmutation are kept hidden from popular self-help books. That's why the ancestral wisdom about conserving vital energy has been deliberately obscured in the modern era. Those who control society understand that men who have mastered their sexual energy are men who cannot be controlled. But you have the opportunity to discover this truth for yourself. You have the capacity to experiment with your own energy and observe the results. You can test Napoleon Hill's theory in the laboratory of your own life. You can discover whether sexual transmutation is real or if it's just a romantic concept without a basis in reality. The answer you discover will completely transform your understanding of yourself and the world. You will realize that you possess within you a source of power you never knew existed. You will discover capabilities you never imagined possessing. You will develop qualities you never believed were possible. You will become a version of yourself that you currently consider impossible. But this discovery requires courage. Courage to question the beliefs you've been taught to accept without question. Courage to experiment with practices that society considers strange or extreme. Courage to sustain disciplines that others will consider impossible. Courage to become different from everyone around you. The journey of sexual transmutation is a hero's journey in its purest form. It's the journey of an ordinary man who discovers extraordinary powers within himself. It's the story of someone who begins as a slave to his impulses and transforms into the master of his destiny. It's the transformation of an ordinary human being into an extraordinary human being through the conscious mastery of his most powerful life force. This journey isn't for everyone. Most people will prefer to continue living at conventional levels of existence, content with superficial pleasures and mediocre achievements. They will choose the familiar path of energy dissipation instead of the unknown path of conservation and transmutation. And that's a valid choice. Each person has the right to live at the level they choose. But for those few who feel the call to something greater, who suspect that there is more power within them than they have already expressed, who are willing to pay the price of transformation, sexual transmutation offers a direct path to the realization of their highest potential. It's a path tested by thousands of years of spiritual tradition and validated by the most successful individuals of the modern era. Napoleon Hill called sexual transmutation the most important secret of successful men. He observed that those who had achieved great accomplishments invariably possessed some understanding of this practice, even if they never explicitly named it. They intuitively understood that their sexual energy was too precious to be wasted and too powerful to be ignored. Now you are being introduced to this same secret. You are being invited to explore territories of your own psyche that few dare to investigate. You are being challenged to question everything you thought you knew about pleasure, power, and purpose. You are being offered the opportunity to discover a force within yourself that can literally transform every aspect of your existence. But this opportunity comes with a responsibility. If you choose to ignore this information, to continue living as you have always lived, wasting your vital energy in fleeting moments of pleasure, you can no longer claim ignorance. You will know that there is a better path, and you will have consciously chosen not to take it. You will know that you possess extraordinary power, and you will have decided to keep it dormant. On the other hand, if you choose to embrace this truth, to experiment with these practices, to test these theories in your own life, you will join the ranks of the few who have discovered the secret of the conscious transmutation of energy. You will become part of a millennial tradition of individuals who have transcended the conventional limitations of human existence through the mastery of their most primitive and powerful life force. The choice is yours. But it's not a choice you can make partially or temporarily. Sexual transmutation requires total commitment. It demands that you burn the bridges to your old patterns of energy dissipation. It requires that you become a fundamentally different person, more disciplined, more focused, more powerful, more conscious. Imagine yourself a year from now, having consistently practiced sexual transmutation. Visualize the version of yourself that will emerge from this discipline. See a man radiating abundant energy, possessing crystal-clear mental clarity, explosive creativity, and a magnetic presence. Observe someone who is no longer a slave to compulsive urges, who no longer needs external stimulation to feel good, who no longer wastes his life force on empty pleasures. This future version of you possesses unwavering confidence because he knows he can rely on himself. He has ironclad discipline because he exercised it in the most challenging arena possible. He possesses abundant vital energy because he stopped constantly squandering it. He has clarity of purpose because he's no longer numbing his soul with superficial pleasures. This future man is not a fantasy. He is a real possibility. He exists as potential within you at this very moment. The only thing separating your current self from this future self is a decision followed by consistent action. It's the decision to stop being controlled by your impulses and to begin consciously controlling them. It's the action of implementing daily practices that conserve and transmute your sexual energy into personal power. But you need to understand that this transformation will not be linear. There will be moments of doubt when you question whether it's worthwhile. There will be moments of temptation when old patterns will seem more appealing than new ones. There will be moments of loneliness when you feel different from everyone around you. There will be moments of difficulty when the discipline seems impossible to maintain. These moments are tests. They are opportunities to prove to yourself that you are stronger than your impulses, more powerful than your circumstances, more determined than your challenges. Each time you successfully pass one of these tests, you become a stronger version of yourself. Each victory over your impulses increases your confidence in your capacity for self-mastery. Modern society hasn't prepared you for these tests. It has taught you that giving in to impulses is natural and that resisting them is harmful. It has convinced you that discipline is repression and that self-control is neurosis. It has programmed you to always seek the easiest path, the most immediate pleasure, the quickest gratification. But sexual transmutation requires the exact opposite. It requires you to choose the harder path because it is also the most rewarding. When you begin practicing sexual transmutation, you quickly discover that you're not just changing a behavior, you're transforming your fundamental identity. You are evolving from someone who is controlled by external forces to someone who exerts conscious control over internal forces. You are transforming from an energy consumer into an energy conserver, from a dissipator of force into an accumulator of power. This identity transformation is both liberating and frightening. It's liberating because you discover that you possess far more power over your life than you ever imagined. It's frightening because with that power comes total responsibility for the results of your life. You can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your failures. You become entirely responsible for your own existence. Total responsibility may seem like a burden, but it is actually a gift. It means you have the power to change any aspect of your life that isn't satisfying. It means you are not a victim of forces beyond your control. It means you are the architect of your own destiny, the sculptor of your own reality, the director of your own existence. Napoleon Hill recognized that truly successful men possessed this sense of total responsibility. They didn't wait for others to solve their problems or create their opportunities. They understood that they were entirely responsible for their results and acted accordingly. And one of the pillars of this total responsibility was mastery of their sexual energy. When you master your sexual energy, you prove to yourself that you can master any aspect of your life. If you can control the most primitive and powerful impulse you possess, you can control any other impulse or habit. If you can transmute the most basic energy of your nature, you can transmute any aspect of your personality. If you can discipline your most fundamental life force, you can discipline any area of your existence. That's why sexual transmutation is considered the most powerful practice of self-development. It's not just about sex, it's about total self-mastery. It's not just about conserving energy, it's about developing unwavering willpower. It's not just about avoiding pleasure, it's about consciously choosing higher pleasures. Higher pleasures are those that nourish your soul instead of merely stimulating your body. They are the pleasures of creation instead of consumption, of building instead of destruction, of growth instead of stagnation. They are the pleasures that leave you stronger instead of weaker, clearer instead of more confused, more powerful instead of more dependent. When you experience these higher pleasures, you realize how lower pleasures are actually just poor substitutes for what you're truly seeking. You are seeking connection through sex, but you find deeper connection through creation. You are seeking energy through pleasure, but you find more lasting energy through discipline. You are seeking satisfaction through gratification, but you find deeper satisfaction through achievement. The journey of sexual transmutation is a journey of discovering who you truly are when you're not being controlled by compulsive urges. It's an exploration of your genuine capabilities when your energy isn't being constantly dissipated. It's an investigation of your real potential when you're not numbing your soul with superficial pleasures. What you discover may shock you. You might find you're far more creative than you ever imagined. You might discover you possess far greater discipline than you've ever demonstrated. You might find you have a sharper intellect than you've ever expressed. You might discover you possess a far more powerful personal magnetism than you knew was possible. These discoveries aren't accidents. They're natural consequences of the conservation and transmutation of sexual energy. When you stop wasting your life force, it automatically manifests in heightened capabilities. When you stop numbing your soul, it automatically expresses itself in increased creativity. When you stop being a slave to impulses, you automatically become master of your circumstances. But perhaps the most profound discovery is that you don't need anything external to feel complete. You don't need the approval of others to have self-esteem. You don't need constant stimulation to have energy. You don't need endless distractions to avoid boredom. You don't need external pleasures to experience satisfaction. Everything you truly need already exists within you. This discovery of inner completeness is revolutionary in a world that's constantly trying to convince you that you need more things, more experiences, more stimulation, more pleasures. Sexual transmutation teaches you that you already possess the source of everything you seek. You already have access to the energy you desire, the creativity you admire, the power you envy, the satisfaction you pursue. Sexual energy is the bridge between your current self and your potential self. It's the force that can elevate you from where you are to where you want to be. It's the fuel that can power your transformation from ordinary to extraordinary. It's the key that can unlock capabilities you didn't even know you possessed. But this key must be used consciously. Sexual energy, like any powerful force, can build or destroy, elevate or degrade, liberate or enslave. When used unconsciously, it becomes a destructive force that keeps you trapped in cycles of compulsion and weakness. When used consciously, it becomes a constructive force that elevates you to extraordinary levels of achievement and satisfaction. Napoleon Hill observed that the most successful men weren't those who had the most sexual energy, but those who knew how to consciously direct it. They had learned to transform impulse into inspiration, desire into determination, passion into purpose. They had discovered how to use the same energy that others wasted in moments of pleasure to build lasting empires of achievement. This transformation isn't mystical or esoteric, it's practical and tangible. When you conserve sexual energy, you have more physical energy to work. When you transmute sexual energy, you have more mental energy to think. When you consciously direct sexual energy, you have more emotional energy to create. When you master sexual energy, you have more spiritual energy to evolve. The result is that you become an amplified version of yourself. Everything you do with more intensity. Everything you create with more inspiration. Everything you build with more power. Everything you achieve with more satisfaction. You don't become a different person. You become the most powerful version of the person you always were. This amplification of your natural capabilities is what separates those who practice sexual transmutation from those who don't. It's not that they're fundamentally different, it's that they've learned to access and direct a source of energy that others waste. They've discovered how to consciously use a force that others use unconsciously. The difference in results is dramatic. While others struggle with lack of energy, weak discipline, limited creativity, and inconsistent motivation, those who practice sexual transmutation enjoy abundant energy, ironclad discipline, explosive creativity, and unwavering motivation. They're not superhuman. They've simply learned to fully utilize the human resources everyone possesses. You possess these same resources. Within you burns the same fire that burned in all the great achievers of history. The only difference is that they learn to use that fire consciously, while you may still be letting it burn uncontrollably. They channeled that energy toward higher purposes, while you may still be letting it dissipate in fleeting pleasures. But that can change. From this moment forward, you can begin to treat your sexual energy as the precious resource that it is. You can begin to consciously conserve it instead of unconsciously dissipating it. You can begin to direct it toward your most important goals instead of wasting it on immediate gratification. You can begin to use it as fuel for your evolution instead of letting it be the cause of your stagnation. The journey of sexual transmutation begins with a simple yet profound decision. The decision to stop being controlled by your sexual impulses and to begin consciously controlling them. It's the decision to stop using your sexual energy as an escape and to start using it as fuel. It's the decision to stop being a slave to your desires and to start being the master of your destiny. This decision must be renewed each day, each moment of temptation, each test of your discipline. It's not a decision you make once and then forget. It's a decision you must make repeatedly until it becomes second nature. It's a decision that strengthens with each victory over your impulses and that can weaken with each moment of complacency. But as you consistently practice this decision, something extraordinary happens. What began as discipline transforms into freedom. What began as restriction transforms into expansion. What began as sacrifice transforms into abundance. You discover that you're not losing anything of value. You're gaining everything of value. You're gaining control over your own life. You're accessing energy levels you'd forgotten you possessed. You're gaining clarity about your true goals and purposes. You're gaining the strength to persevere through any challenge. You're gaining the confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself completely. This self-confidence is perhaps the most valuable benefit of sexual transmutation. When you prove to yourself that you can master the most primal and powerful urge you possess, you develop an unshakable certainty in your ability to master any aspect of your life. You know that if you can control your sexual energy, you can control your financial habits. If you can transmute your sexual impulses, you can transmute your negative thought patterns. If you can discipline your life force, you can discipline any area of your existence. This confidence isn't arrogance, it's knowledge based on experience. You're not assuming you can do something, you're remembering that you've already proven you can do something even harder. You're not hoping to have strength. You're accessing strength you've already developed. You're not trying to convince yourself you're powerful. You're recognizing power you've already demonstrated. The power you develop through sexuals. Transmutation isn't power over others. It's power over yourself. It's the ability to consciously direct your own energy instead of being unconsciously driven by it. It's the ability to choose your own responses instead of reacting automatically. It's the strength to maintain your high standards instead of succumbing to pressures to lower them. This power over oneself is the basis of all genuine power in the world. You can't effectively lead others if you can't lead yourself. You can't inspire others if you aren't inspired. You can't create lasting value for others if you aren't creating lasting value for yourself. All genuine external power flows from internal power, developed through self-mastery. Sexual transmutation is the most advanced school of self-mastery. It's where you learn to exert conscious control over the most primal and powerful forces of your nature. It's where you develop the discipline to maintain high standards even when no one is watching. It's where you cultivate the inner strength needed to resist the social pressures that try to pull you back to mediocrity. When you graduate from this school of self-mastery, you become qualified for life's higher challenges. You become capable of building lasting relationships because you're no longer looking to others for what you should be providing for yourself. You become capable of creating sustainable wealth because you've developed the discipline to make long-term investments. You become capable of achieving ambitious dreams because you possess the energy and focus needed to persevere through years of dedicated work. But perhaps most importantly, you become capable of experiencing a deep and lasting satisfaction that doesn't depend on external circumstances. You develop an inner wellspring of contentment that can't be disturbed by external events. You cultivate an inner peace that can't be shattered by external changes. You build an inner strength that can't be broken by external pressures. This inner satisfaction is the true goal of every human pursuit. Everything you pursue externally, success, relationships, experiences, possessions, you pursue because you believe it will bring you this inner satisfaction. But sexual transmutation teaches you to develop this satisfaction directly, instead of seeking it through indirect means that often fail to deliver it. The choice is yours. But remember, this isn't just a decision about sexual behavior. It's a decision about what kind of person you want to become. It's a decision about what kind of life you want to live. It's a decision about what kind of legacy you want to leave. It's a decision about whether you're willing to pay the price of greatness or whether you'll prefer to remain comfortably mediocre. If you choose greatness, if you decide to embrace the journey of sexual transmutation, you will join the ranks of those few who have discovered the most powerful secret of human existence. You will become part of an age-old tradition of individuals who have transcended conventional limitations through the conscious mastery of their life force. And when you look back, years into the future, at the person you were before discovering this secret, you will be astonished by the transformation. You will barely recognize that previous version of yourself, so weak, so undisciplined, so limited compared to the powerful, focused, and accomplished person you have become. That transformation awaits you. That power is available to you. That possibility exists within you right now. The only question that remains is, will you have the courage to embrace it? The sacred fire burns within you. The vital energy pulses through your veins. The creative force of the universe is at your disposal. You can choose to squander it, or you can choose to consciously direct it toward the creation of an extraordinary life. You can choose to remain a slave to your impulses, or you can choose to become the master of your destiny. The choice is yours. The power is yours. The moment is now. The journey of sexual transmutation begins with a single decision. The decision to stop wasting your life force and begin using it consciously to create a life worthy of your highest potentials. Make that choice. Make that decision. Begin that journey. Discover the power that has always existed within you. Become the person you always knew you could be. Live the life you always knew was possible. The secret of sexual transmutation isn't just about conserving energy. It's about discovering who you truly are when that energy is consciously directed toward your highest purposes. It's about becoming a force of nature instead of a victim of circumstance. It's about evolving from an ordinary human being to an extraordinary human being through mastery of the most primal and powerful force you possess. This is the most powerful psychological strategy that exists. This is the key to unlocking your unlimited potential. This is the gateway to a life of power, purpose, and profound satisfaction. This is your opportunity to discover what Napoleon Hill called the master key to success. The journey begins now. The power is in your hands. The extraordinary future you've always desired is awaiting your decision to embrace the transformative power of sexual transmutation. Don't waste another day, another hour, another moment. Your extraordinary life is calling you. Answer that call. Become who you were born to be.